Today I wanted to do a Stephen King collection book video, sorry. I'm a bit out of it because I haven't uploaded in so long, so it's different. And I'm uploading outside, which is very nerve-wracking. But the weather is nice, so yeah. I hope you're all good and everything's going great. I've been sick and I had some study things to do, so I couldn't upload. But I'm back, so yeah. And what better way to be back than to make a video about Stephen King's books. I'm doing a two-part series, so this is only part 1. And if you want to watch a part 2, I can't promise I will upload it soon, but I'll try. Yeah. The first book I wanted to talk about, and if you just can, just one thing before that, these are stacks I'm going to, books I'm going to talk about. Yes. So quite a lot. But there's a lot more. And that's why I wanted to put this video, make a two-part series out of this video. Yeah. The first book I wanted to talk about is The Green Mile by Stephen King. And I haven't read it so far, but it's a beautiful copy. It's not. I got it from a friend of mine, and I have to give it back to her soon. But until then, I should read it, I think. Yeah, it's very nice. And it even has illustrations. And I think it's a good book, but I haven't read it, like I said. I can't say much about it. The second book I'm going to talk about briefly, which is a bit stained, I see. Don't know what happened there. Is The Cell by Stephen King, which is about a pandemic. Really a pandemic, but like a virus that spreads on cell phones. And whenever a cell phone rings and someone picks up, they get sick and die. And there's also a movie. And I wanted to read the book before I watched the movie, so yeah. And I thought the premise was very cool. Oh, the sun is coming out. That's why I made this video outside. Yes. Yeah, so that's The Cell. Yes. Next book I wanted to talk about is The Stand by Stephen King, which is quite a classic. All of them are classics, but this is very monumental. I have a copy, which is not that nice, because it has kind of strange, I have to open it strangely. That's a fault of this this printer, because this printer also made this one, Cujo, and it's even worse. How am I supposed to read this? Can you tell me? No. But yeah. I've read it last year at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's I don't know, it's quite something. It's very good, and it's very long, but it's worthwhile. I think it's about a pandemic, like you if you don't know, and it spreads very quickly and everyone dies. I mean, almost everyone. There wouldn't be a book if everyone died, but almost everyone dies, and yeah, so it's a bit different to the COVID pandemic. Yeah. Next book I wanted to talk about, and I'm getting more excited with each book, I think. No, I'm getting more excited with each book, and because they're also great and exciting. It's the Salem's Lot by Stephen King. A shocker, Stephen King. But I haven't read it yet. It's from the same. It's been printed by the same printing company as this one. Yeah. Because I thought they looked good, but they're not very readable. Yeah. It has a nice cover though, and it's about vampires. And everyone thinks Stephen King writes horror with no fantasy elements and such. Like, I mean, it was kind of paranormal, but not really. I haven't read it yet. I have read the beginning, so I can't say much. I'm one of these people that haven't read it, but yeah, it's quite a big book, so don't judge me. But Salem's Lot is about vampires, and vampires in Castle Rock. Castle Rock is a town that gets mentioned in this one too. Oh, there's a picture of an old picture of Stephen King. He looked so young. He was young, so it's quite an old copy, it appears. But yeah, Castle Rock gets mentioned in some of his books. It's a town, a fictional town. I think in Maine, I'm not sure. But it has an eerie feeling, and some paranormal stuff happens. Vampires and rabid dogs, for example. And yeah, this one's about a rabid dog. Yeah, this one's about vampires. And I just think it's very exciting. That Stephen King and vampires is something I would have never imagined to read someday, but here we are. Fun. The original vampire. No, not the original, but one of the first. No, not the first. I mean, no. My favorite vampire author who writes vampire stories is Anne Rice, by the way. She wrote Interview with a Vampire, which got put into a film starring Brad Pitt. And I think the blonde actress, I forgot her name, but she was very young. She played the daughter of a homosexual couple. It's been hinted at that they're homosexual because it wasn't quite that accepted in Hollywood at that time. It's an old movie, but Anne Rice explicitly said they're together, and she's very open about the whole thing, and it's great. Yeah. My next Stephen King book I wanted to talk about is The Outsider. The Outsider. By Stephen King too, obviously. But it's a bit newer than the others I've talked about. I've not talked about in detail, but I've briefly mentioned. And some people say it's one of his weakest ones, but I have to disagree. I think it's one of his best books. It's about a guy that gets framed for committing a heinous crime, very like something with a child, and some, I think, molesting, rape, and it's very disgusting, and it's trigger warning. Sorry, should have put that before. But yeah, but he hasn't committed a crime. He actually has a doppelganger who got seen at the crime, and everyone thought it was him, and because he looked like him, and everyone was like, okay. And they arrested him, the guy who didn't commit any murders, but they thought he did. And he was actually a coach of that boy who got molested and killed. Did he get killed too? I think he got killed too. Yes, he got killed too. And it's been a while since I've read it, but it was very nice. The atmosphere was very chilling, and I'm not gonna talk about it any further, but that's just the premise of it. And if you want to read it, I highly recommend it, because it's thriller-esque, and with some it's very dramatic, and there's a twist, like obviously there is. Yeah, it's nice. The next book I've read recently, that's the Dreamcatcher. Dreamcatcher, it's just Dreamcatcher. I think it's not called Dreamcatcher in the original, because this is the German copy of it. I think it's called Dudits or something in the original English version. Let me just look at it. No, it's called Dreamcatcher, yes. There's just another title underneath. Dudits, because one of the main characters is named Dudits. and that's not in the original one. But Dreamcatcher is about a group of guys who go camping in the woods in, I think, in Maine. Yes, of course in Maine, because every story of by Stephen King is in Maine. Not every, but most of them are. I mean, which is great because there's a pattern involved, and it's very nice. It's very familiar. But they go camping in Maine, and something happens. I'm not gonna say much about it. I mean, it's kind of involving a virus and stuff, but they get infected by it, and everyone goes rabid, and yeah, it's it's kind of a gruesome story. It has some body horror in it, and he doesn't usually. Stephen King is one of these authors who doesn't write much body horror. He liked The Troop, that other body horror book, because he said so in an interview, which I found very surprising because he actually doesn't write in that way. And this one's very gruesome though, so beware. There's some worms inside of, like The Troop, but worms inside of the body, and some creatures. It's a bit, yeah. I'm very expressive today. But there's a film too, and I like the film a bit better actually than the book, which is rare for me because I love books more. I really like books more than the movie adaptations. But it could be because I read it in German and I don't really connect that much to German sometimes because I watched so many English films and movies, which is kind of everyone's always asking me why am I watching so many English films, but yeah, I don't know, I just like the language and can't explain it. Yeah, that's Dreamcatcher. The book itself is written a bit, I don't know, it's one of these books that are not really liked that much, but no one really talks about what it is about. So I liked it. It's body horror. It's gruesome and it's sometimes stupid, but yeah, it exists. The next one is Misery, which is kind of a classic. It's called the German version of She in C in German here, which is unfortunate because why would you translate something like misery into another word? I mean, why would you print it like, would you call it a different title if it doesn't fit? I mean, it fits kind of because it's about a psycho girl that kidnaps a famous author. Hint, maybe that's a hint to Stephen King. Maybe that's something that's pointing towards Stephen King. I mean, he hasn't had that experience yet, but I hope. But yeah, and she tortures him, and she wants him to rewrite his book, the ending of his book, but he doesn't want to. But and it's kind of a psychological thriller and very nice, very. I don't know, it's very intense. There's a movie too, which I haven't watched yet. And everyone tells me it's so good, and so maybe I'll watch it soon. The next book I wanted to talk about is Insomnia by Stephen King, and I don't know very much about it, to be honest. The only thing I know about it is the thing that's over that's written here, and I can read it to you if you want. I mean, that's all I know. And it reminded me of what's that movie? The one with I forgot the name of it. Five Nights. No, I think the Freddy one. Freddy Krueger. Five Nights. No, that's not five. Actually, I don't know anymore. But the Freddy Krueger one, where the people can't go to sleep because if they close their eyes, they're gonna get haunted by and killed in their sleep. Yeah, that one, because it has a similar premise. Well, however, it says, there's a reason why Stephen King, oh, sorry, that's the blurb. I'm gonna cut this out, I'm sorry, and if I don't, then just ignore it. Sorry, there's some noises. Filming outside, so fun. Well, here it goes. You lose a lot of sleep. Ralph does. At first, he starts waking up earlier and earlier. Then the hallucinations start. The colors, shapes, and strange auras. Not to mention the bald doctors who always turn up at the scene of a death. That's when Ralph begins to lose a lot more than sleep. When he begins to understand why his hitherto mild-mannered friend, Ed, is getting out of control, dangerously so. And why his hometown is about to become the new Armageddon. Well, let's see, it sounds ominous and it doesn't tell us much. But I think it's something about dreams and strange dreams. Yeah. I hope I'm not saying something wrong, because it's a classic too, and it has a nice, the cover is nice, a bit mysterious. Yeah. And then the last book I wanted to talk about is actually a favorite of mine. Not the first Stephen King book I read by him, but one of his firsts. I think it was a very old. His first was Carrie. It's my master list, and I can check if I want to know which one was his first. But the first was Carrie. And this one was his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18th book. Should have made a note of it. But this was his 18th book, apparently. I hope they haven't forgotten any, but if I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. Anyways, this is a very nice copy of it, and I actually read it in a different copy when I read it first, which was just a tattered blue one. But it didn't matter because it was so good, and I don't know, the premise of it is something wildly bizarre, but yeah, really great nevertheless. And it's about a family whose cat died. Not his cat. There's a tragedy in a family, and I get confused because I know which kid died. The son, I think the son. But the movie I watched recently flipped it. There was a gender flip, and I think the daughter died, and it didn't make sense. But I think they didn't want to shock the viewers into killing off a very young child, because the child was 3 years old and got hit by a truck. Spoiler, but it isn't a spoiler because it's very widely known. Yeah, and it's a bit shocking. And when I read it, I was like, ooh, shit, no, that's very, very, very bad. And the boy actually dies because he ran after his cat on the streets, and the dad runs after him, and he never gets to his son, and he always feels guilty for this, that he couldn't save his son. Yeah, and so he decided to bring him back. And it fails. There have been some previous experimentations in that family with necromancy. I mean, not with this family, but with the town in general. And they try to bring back cats and stuff, and their own cats, which died unfortunately. But they come back very changed, to say the least. And they regret their decision very quickly, and it goes south from there. And nice. Very horror, very Stephen King. But there was just a tone throughout the whole book that got me, that I don't know, I got shivers over my body. body when I reread it, and it's something that stayed with me and still stays with me till this day, because it's so moody and so atmospheric. I don't know, I can actually recommend the new movie that came out recently, but I haven't watched the old one yet. But the new one I really liked because it was really on point. They changed the gender and stuff, but it was very linear. It was structured very on sorry noises. It was structured very nicely and told the plots from A to C. And I really liked that, and I missed that in all other Hollywood movies. And this story is very, very nice on its own, so I'm very glad it didn't change that much, except for one of the main things, gender, but doesn't matter at this point. And yeah, if I would say I had a favorite out of all of these, I would probably say, yeah, Pet Sematary, actually. I mean, I can't say much how much. I don't know. It's just a good book. It's an idea I haven't read in other books, because some people touch on the subject of necromancy and bringing someone or somebody or an animal or something back to life, but never in that I don't know, straightforward way. There's nothing with like magic. It's not like it's magic. It's not really clearly described what it is, but the motivations behind it get described very in detail, and that's what Stephen King does in general. He really analyzes psychological influences, and in this book it's very much about grief and how you grieve when a pet dies, or when a son dies, or someone dies, and how you can deal with it, and how you shouldn't deal with it, because that's not the way to deal with it. I think acceptance is the way, but if you want to change it, then might not be the best idea. And I think it's a very intelligent book in that regard. Yeah, let me know what your favorite book, Stephen King book is, and thank you all for watching. And I'm getting very cold, so I'm talking a bit faster. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.